So a slight programming change that I'll make you aware of. I realized after some consideration that it doesn't make much sense for me to upload the fantasy football Q&A on Sunday. Gives you guys a limited amount of time to actually see the video and be able to get your questions answered. So I've decided that the Q&As throughout at least the football season are going to be Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. So make sure if you have fantasy football questions that come up after Thursday, they get them tweeted to me by sometime early Saturday morning, so that way I can have the Q&A up as soon as possible. All right, with that said, let's get started here. Matt Meffe2 asks, Greg Olsen or Antonio Gates? I have one tight end spot, and Golden Tate is my only wide receiver tight end. Which one would you start? Olsen or Gates? I might go with Gates because of the matchup against Oakland. That might be the type of prime matchup where Gates has a big day. So I might go with that. I mean, if you started Greg Olsen, I wouldn't feel too bad about that either because he's a primary target for Cam Newton. He consistently seems to get targets, opportunities, and red zone targets and opportunities especially. Headcase 814 asked, Jimmy Graham and Crabtree for Delaney Walker and Mike Wallace. Should I accept? Now, are you trading away Graham and Crabtree, or are you trading away Delaney Walker and Mike Wallace? I maybe didn't get the whole perspective here. I don't really see where, one way or another, this deal makes a whole lot of sense. It seems to kind of negate itself. You're trading a wide receiver and a tight end for a wide receiver and tight end. If you're sitting there trying to trade Graham and Crabtree for Walker and Wallace, more likely than not, you probably took Jimmy Graham either in the late portion of round 1 or early portion of round 2. Are you really thinking it's that wise to trade him right now? I don't know about that. So I don't think you should accept. I just don't see where there's much benefit. It'd be different if a running back was involved and you needed running back help. Maybe you needed to get points in that different area. But this kind of seems to be a trade that kind of washes itself out, if anything. And when you look at upside, like if you're trying to trade away Jimmy Graham, he has the most upside out of any of the four. So I think you got to go with that. So if you have Jimmy Graham, you need to keep him. If you have Delaney Walker and Mike Wallace, and you have a hard on for Jimmy Graham and you're trying to trade him, okay, that trade for him, then maybe, but I just don't see where it's going to help out one side or the other all that much. It's kind of one of those push deals. Good guy here asks, a half-point PPR league, would you trade away Fred Jackson to receive Mike Wallace? I have Emmanuel Sanders, Pierre Garcon, Michael Floyd, Mohamed Sanu, Michael Crabtree, Le'Veon Bell, Brandon Oliver, Jaron McKinney, or McKinnon, Jarek McKinnon, Jerick McKinnon, easy for me to say, and Darren Sproles. Looking at your receivers, if you think Mike Wallace is the best option for you, I don't see where it would be all that disastrous to trade Fred Jackson, because you already have Le'Veon Bell. I mean, I don't know how much you're going to get out of Oliver long term, so that should give you a little pause. McKinnon hasn't taken over as a feature back in Minnesota, and he might not anytime soon. And Sproles is kind of one of those guys, you're going to get some big weeks out of him, and some weeks you're going to get nothing. If you really think you need help at wide receiver, that's not a terrible deal, but I'm not sure either that you really necessarily need to do it at this point, based off of what you've told me here. Because to me, Mike Wallace kind of goes into that schmaz of receivers that you already have. Granning 21. If anything, I would suggest trying to package up a couple of those, a Fred Jackson and then one of those wide receivers, maybe a Pierre Garcon or a Mohamed Sanu, and try and get a better number 2 running back to go with Le'Veon Bell. That might be the approach that I would take. Granting 21. A guy I'm looking to trade with will only trade Victor Cruz or Vincent Jackson. Who would I regret trading away least? I'd have to say because of the quarterback, you'd probably regret getting rid of Vincent Jackson less. I mean, I don't know what you're trying to trade for, what the package is, what you need. So I don't even know if you necessarily need to make the damn deal. With that being said, if this guy will only trade for Cruz or Jackson, maybe he has a hard-on for these two, and you could sit there and really get something nice for them more than you should get. So maybe you should hit me up on Twitter and get some real help on this before you just make a bad decision. Dat Fuki Buki asks, should I start Delaney Walker or Greg Olson? I'd rather start Greg Olson personally, because I think Greg Olson's production's a little more believable long-term than Delaney Walker's has been so far, especially when you look at the quarterback situation in Tennessee. If you talk about week 6, if you started Walker and Olson did better, if you started Olson and Walker did better, you can't feel too bad. You have 2 nice tight ends. But I would probably go with Greg Olson. Chase Oliver 68. I think I answered you on Twitter, but I'm doing it here again for the benefit of all to hear, Chase. I have Ryan Tannehill as my quarterback in this one league, but I see Eli Manning on free agency. Should I dump Tannehill for Eli? Yes. Yes. Yes, you should. So it looks like, at least at this time, that the Giants' offense is legit and that Eli could be a top 10 fantasy quarterback this year, which is not something I necessarily envision for Ryan Tannehill. I would view that as an upgrade, and I view that as a move that you must make. History buff. Now, notice, keep in mind, people, and I'm assuming Chase is smart enough to only have one quarterback, even though somehow his one quarterback ended up as Ryan Tannehill. I don't know how that happened. Maybe it's a 14 or 16 team league, or Chase tried to follow the Schleg Daddy philosophy of drafting a quarterback late, and he chased it up. But notice he's saying drop a quarterback for another quarterback, not have 2 or 3 on your goddamn roster. Good job, Chase. You're listening a little bit. Excuse me. History Buff 188, and I believe I whooped Chase's ass in my league last week, so y'all should ask him how that went. History Buff 188, I spanked his ass. My running backs are Andre Ellington, Le'Veon Bell, and Doug Martin. Should I drop Martin and take a risk on Storm Johnson? Who else is on your roster? Is Doug Martin really the weakest member of your roster, or do you have a wide receiver that's weaker? Do you have a second quarterback that you don't need, a second kicker, or a second defense you don't need? You need to fill me in, History Buff 188, in terms of what else is on your roster. And maybe I've seen it before and I don't remember. When you ask me a question like this, try and send me like a screen cap or more details following to let me know what you've got. Should you take a risk on Storm Johnson? Yes. It might not pay off right away, but he's a guy to keep your eye on. I really believe that. I truly believe that, similar to how I did with Andre Ellington last year. I think he's a guy that you pick up, you stash, and at some point in time, it could pay off for you very nicely. I really, truly believe that. I'm a huge Storm Johnson fan. I thought he was a second-round prospect in this draft. I thought the Jags got an absolute steal on him in the 7th round. I think the opportunity's there. It could come as early as week 6 with Toby Gerhart being out. I'm not sure if I'm going to pull the trigger just yet and pick up Storm Johnson and play him, but I might pick up Storm Johnson as a gamble, because that gamble could pay off. Viking fan for life. Knowshon Moreno, Cordero Patterson, Victor Cruz, Michael Floyd, or Bradshaw for flex this week. Well, hopefully you did Bradshaw. Try not, guys, if you're sending me questions for the Sunday Q&A, try not to ask me questions involving the guys in the Thursday night games, because you won't get it answered. In terms of the remaining options you have left that you named, the Vikings and Norv Turner keep talking this bullshit about wanting to get Cordero Patterson more involved, and they just can't seem to find a way to do it. So until they do it, I can't believe it. Michael Floyd, I don't like the quarterback situation in Arizona right now. Knowshon Moreno, we have to see if he's even going to play this week, and if he does, how the carry differential is going to be between him and Lamar Miller. So I think your safest bet out of those other 4, not including Ahmad Bradshaw, unless you already played him, would have been Victor Cruz. That would be me. But in this case, even before Thursday, I would have said Ahmad Bradshaw 1, Victor Cruz 2. And then you also asked, should I pick up Jordan Cameron, Heath Miller, Jared Cook, Niles Pollard, Owen Daniels for tight end this week? If Jordan Cameron's out there, take a flyer on him. They're matching up against Pittsburgh this week. Hoyer seems to be in a somewhat decent rhythm as a quarterback. You'd have to think that Cameron's talent at some point in time will manifest itself into a big game. Pittsburgh's linebackers and secondary struggle against opposing tight ends. This might be the week. So if I were going to pick up anybody, I'd pick up Jordan Cameron because I think he has the most upside. After that, if he was somehow gone, then probably Owen Daniels because I think he gets a number of red zone targets from Flacco. Mark Whalen, 67. Who do I go with at the flex this week? Brandon Oliver, San Diego, going against Oakland. Frank Gore, the 49ers, going against the Rams. Or Ben Tate of the Browns going against the Steelers. 3 pretty good matchups there. I would probably rank them Gore 1, Oliver 2, Tate 3. St. Louis struggles against the run, and San Francisco seems to have a renewed emphasis and commitment to the running game. So at this point in time, I would have to say Frank Gore. Oliver's tempting against the Raiders, but last week's performance against the Jets was kind of a 1-week outlier. So that was, until proven otherwise, it was kind of fluky a little bit, at least a little bit in terms of how well he performed. And then your other question, do I start Matthew Stafford or Colin Kaepernick at quarterback? I'm uneasy about both. They probably should be. I don't know how your league scores, how much do you get for rushing yards, etc. I probably would go with, yeah, you have a reason to be uneasy. I'd almost damn near tell you to flip a coin. But I will say Kaepernick because it's Monday night and he has the ability to score in more ways than Matthew Stafford does. So thanks to you guys that submitted your questions for this fantasy football Q&A. If come Sunday you have last-minute fantasy football lineup questions, hit me up on Twitter. pfspot_Schlegel is the Twitter handle. Just ask your questions away. Like I said, in the future, these fantasy football Q&As, I'll try and get up at some point in time on Saturday so we have more time to see them, more time to get potential help that you might need.